Good evening and welcome to the October 16, 2023 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and to lead us in the pledge we have some former and current participants in Amazing Afternoons, Gaithersburg Youth Club and Student Union, Alejandro Levano, Nathan Levano, and Sophia Levano. If they could come please lead us in the pledge, everyone can please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you guys very much. Next on our agenda is reflection, and for reflection I wanted to dedicate our moment of silence tonight to two groups. I want to express our condolences to the family, friends, and former constituents of State Senator Jenny Forehand, who died last week. She represented Gaithersburg and Rockville in the General Assembly for 36 years, 16 in the House and 20 in the Senate, before retiring at the end of 2014. Many of us worked with Jenny for a lot of years and remember her well. She was a delightful presence in the community, always keen to push for women's issues, including reproductive rights, pay equity, family leave, and protections for women who've been victims of domestic violence. She was a huge champion for the ICC, not only for its funding and construction, but I remember after it was built, Jenny being so excited to raise the speed limit from 55 to 60. And I'm actually grateful for that achievement at least twice a week, every week. She was a friend to many of us and a real exemplar of how to work in the public sphere with grace and kindness. She was 87 years old. And I'd also like to dedicate this moment of silence to our Jewish brothers and sisters, their friends and families, and every peace-loving member of our community, as we were all profoundly hurt and aggrieved by the horrific October 7 attacks on Israeli civilians by the terrorist group Hamas. I participated in a vigil last week at Congregation Har Shalom in Potomac. There may have been 2,000 people there. It was a very stirring and cathartic event. So this moment of silence is really for all of us. Thank you all very much. Next, we have approval of minutes. And tonight we have one set of minutes before us. It is from the regular session on October 2nd, 2023. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the minutes of October 2nd, 2023.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0. And next on our agenda, we have appointments. So tonight there's a resolution for several appointments and reappointments. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move the approval of the resolution confirming appointments and reappointments that you made to the Economic and Business Development Committee, to the Educational Enrichment Committee, Environmental Affairs Committee, Gaithersburg Book Festival Committee, Multicultural Affairs Committee, Old Town Advisory Committee, Police Advisory Committee, and Transportation Committee. To the Gaithersburg Books Festival Committee for an indefinite term, Destiny Dry-Wee and Catherine Gilbert. For the Old Town Advisory Committee, a 3-year term to Carla White from Brooks Russell Walker Edition. To the Police Advisory Committee, Kyle DeCastro from the Gaithersburg community. Reappointments to the Economic and Business Development Committee for a 3-year term, Henry Bernstein, Dan Dellin, and Philip Usatine, term expiring October 2026. To the Educational Enrichment Committee, 2-year terms for Mark Ezrin and Ghislaine Taseko. Yep. Term expiring October 2025. To the Environmental Affairs Committee, Jeanette Rosenbaum from Montgomery Village, a term expiring October 2025. The Multicultural Affairs Committee, to Israel Isaiah, term expiring October 2025. To the Police Advisory Committee, John Monroe from Old Town, a term expiring October 2025. And finally, and last but not least, Sean Emerson to the Transportation Committee, term expiring October 2025.
All right.
Second.
Okay, a lot of appointments. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 4-0. Let it be known in the minutes that we now have our fourth. Okay.
And I know Elise Carla's in the audience.
Oh, okay. Anybody whose name I just read, please raise your hand. Okay. Carlo, let's give her a great round of applause for serving. I will just note that, as I always do, that serving on a volunteer city committee is a great way to get involved and contribute meaningfully to the business of the city. You get to meet like-minded people in the community, see how the city works. It's just like a win-win-win. So if you're thinking about ways to get involved in the community, one of our city committees is a great way. Next, we have presentations, and we have a whole bunch of presentations tonight. The first one is for the Police Life-Saving Award. I'm going to ask the chief to join me at the podium and lead this.
Oh. Okay.
I think just the top turn.
Yes. You're much stronger than. It may be.
All right. Where's the rest leader? That's the chief.
Okay. All right. Good evening. The Life-Saving Award is authorized in instances where an officer performs a life-saving measure in an exemplary manner. On December 3rd, 2017, Officer Carissa Fortin began her career, and since that time has proven herself to be to resemble Gaithersburg's finest. She's done that throughout her career. On July 30th of 2023, about 1:34 in the morning, officers responded to the 200 block of Muddy Branch Road for a 46-year-old woman that had jumped from a moving vehicle during a domestic dispute. As a result, she sustained a severe laceration to her right arm after her arm became entangled underneath the moving vehicle. She sustained uncontrolled heavy bleeding. Shortly thereafter, Officer Carissa Fortin arrived, and she recognized the severity of those injuries. She quickly rendered first aid to include applying a tourniquet to the right arm of the woman in an effort to stop the bleeding. She realized that that tourniquet failed to serve its intended purpose, and the woman continued to bleed heavily. Officer Fortin reverted back to her training and applied a second tourniquet higher up on the arm, which was successful in stopping the bleeding. Shortly thereafter, ambulance personnel arrived and they took over emergency medical care, and the woman was transported to a local area hospital where she did survive. So for Officer Carissa Fortin's quick, calm, and decisive actions that resulted in the saving of a life, I'm pleased to present her with the Life Saving Award. Carissa, if you want to come up. All right, you're welcome.
Isn't that an amazing story?
Absolutely.
You guys thought you were just coming for a proclamation. This is like an action movie tonight. Okay, so, well, here is your proclamation. I'm going to invite Maura and everybody up here who is part of this Lights On After School Week.
I can do it. I think I can do it.
Yeah, just make a couple rows. Oh, come on.
Yeah. taller people in the back,
Guys, slide around.
because there's going to be a picture. You definitely need to get back. You're taller than everybody is. Okay.
I forgot my glasses, so I'm borrowing a set of young eyes to read this here.
Launched in October 2000, Lights On After School in a national-wide event celebrating after-school programs and their important role in the lives of children, families, and community. Lights On After School is a project of the After School Alliance. Thank you. A nonprofit organization dedicated to ensuring that all children have access to required quality affordable after-school program. Numerous of partners support the light of after school and
Initiative.
including
Sorry, guys.
Nations League of Cities and NLC and the Nations Recreation
You're doing great.
and Parks Association RNPA. In America today, almost 8 million children are alone and unsupervised after school. After school programs keep youth safe, helps working families, and inspires learning. They provide opportunities to help young people develop into successful adults. Situation this Proclamation draws attention to the many ways after school programs support students of offering opportunities to learn new things and discover new skills, and the imperative role they played in the future of Gaithersburg. In celebrating of the light of After School Week in Gaithersburg, we want to acknowledge and highlight the city after school program that serves more than 600 youth and teens weekly and
Approximately
1,500 young people throughout the school year.
All right. Oh, actually, wait. There's more, but I think we're gonna cover that. Okay, cool. Good job. Okay, so proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg. Whereas after-school programs are an integral part of the community and youth development throughout the country, including the city of Gaithersburg. And whereas the city of Gaithersburg strives to ensure young people in our community have access to a system of affordable, high-quality programs, activities, and opportunities that promote positive personal development. And whereas the city after-school program offerings ensure that school-age youth from all cultures, backgrounds, and abilities have access to activities and support that will facilitate their current and future success and promote physical and emotional health and well-being. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim October 16th through 2023 as Lights On After School Week in the city of Gaithersburg, and encourage our young residents and their parents to learn more about the after-school programs available in Gaithersburg. Proclaim this 16th day of October 2023, signed by me. Let's give them all a great round of applause. Awesome. Great job, guys. Good job. Okay. Okay. Next, we have a proclamation for Native American Heritage Month. I'm going to have Councilmember Wu come read the background on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Native American Heritage Month is a time to celebrate the rich cultural traditions and proud ancestries of Native Americans and recognize the vital contributions they have made and continue to make to the art, history, traditions, and diversity of our society. According to the 2020 census, Native Americans make up less than 1% of the city of Gaithersburg's population. However, their numbers are growing. In the month of November, the city's Multicultural Affairs Committee will celebrate Native American Heritage Month by exhibiting a month-long educational display that recognizes influential Native Americans and celebrates the impact Native Americans have had on our nation's history and culture. The exhibit can be viewed Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Saturdays and Sundays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Activity Center at Borough Park.
All right. Stay here. You're going to receive this, too. Proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg, whereas in 1990, President George H.W. Bush approved a joint resolution designating November as National Native American Heritage Month. Sorry about that. In recognition of the rich history and culture of the country's Native population. And whereas the U.S. government officially recognizes 574 tribes in the contiguous 48 states and Alaska. In Maryland, there are residents who represent these nations, as well as some of the more than 500 tribes from Latin America and the Caribbean. And whereas the nation most closely associated with the boundaries of today's Montgomery County are the Piscataway. The city of Gaithersburg acknowledges that the Piscataway Indian Nation continues to maintain a relationship with the lands and waters and acknowledge that we are uninvited visitors on indigenous lands. The state of Maryland officially recognized the Piscataway Conoy tribe, I hope I pronounced that right, and Piscataway Indian Nation in 2012. And whereas this special observance reflects the rich heritage and great influences that Native Americans had on our nation's history and culture, and also reflects our continuing commitment to Native American tribal governments as an integral part of the social, political, and economic fabric of the United States. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim November 2023 as Native American Heritage Month in the city of Gaithersburg and urge all residents to participate in this observance, thereby fostering the celebration of diversity and keeping strong the rich tradition, the rich cultural foundation of our community. Proclaim this 16th day of October 2023. And let's give Rob Wu a round of applause for accepting this. Stay here because we're. Yeah, okay, let's do a picture.
Why not? Thank you.
Okay, hang on. Because I want to invite the whole council here for Municipal Government Works Month in the city of Gaithersburg. Council members, come on up. Jim, I'll let you do the honors.
As the level of government closest to the people, local government offers its citizens the best opportunity to be heard and to influence the course of the community. Self-governance is inherently dependent on the awareness of citizens and the level of commitment they have in regard to participating in government. Each November, the Maryland Municipal League, or MML, encourages local municipalities to celebrate Municipal Government Works Month, or MGW, in an effort to promote citizens' awareness of and interest in the government in their communities. Every Wednesday through the month of November, the city will share videos and feature articles highlighting the many jobs performed by our Parks and Recreation, Public Works, and Planning departments to help make Gaithersburg a great place to live and work. Look for posts using the hashtag MGW Wednesday, it's 2 W's, on our city's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts at GBurgMD. Sir.
Proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg, whereas the city was incorporated in 1878, and whereas Maryland is home to 157 other municipalities and 2 special districts, and whereas municipal government represents the most responsive level of government, allowing citizens to have direct access to elected officials, and whereas in an effort to educate citizens about municipal government and the importance of their participation, the city of Gaithersburg is proud to promote municipal government awareness, and whereas municipalities have enhanced the quality of life for their respective residents, maintaining natural and historic sites and structures, and helping to make Gaithersburg and Maryland great places to live, work, and play. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim November 2023 as Municipal Government Works Months in the city of Gaithersburg. And I'd like to give a round of applause to this great city council. They are awesome. Okay. Neil, you stay. Okay. Next, we have our Small Business Saturday.
Scheduled between the retail behemoths of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, Small Business Saturday highlights the importance of shopping locally, whether for goods or services. American Express created this holiday in 2010 with the goal of encouraging support for local shops and small online retailers. In Gaithersburg, the day celebrates not only retailers, but also the many other types of small independent employers that contribute to the local economy throughout the year. The COVID-19 pandemic had an especially large impact upon these businesses whose owners and workers have addressed rapid transformation, adapting to a changed economy.
And if you happen to be wondering why we have so many proclamations tonight, it is an unusual amount, but it's because we have no regular meetings in November this year because of our election in the city. So we're doing them all right now. But we're almost through it, and these are good. Proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg, whereas the Mayor and City Council of the City of Gaithersburg, Maryland, celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit of our local small business owners, whose resourcefulness, ingenuity are key forces in driving the economy of our city. And whereas our city's small businesses span an exceptionally wide range of industries, including retail, food service, healthcare, professional and technical fields, and whereas Gaithersburg's small business owners have realized success through their vision, hard work, and commitment to operating a business daily, and their efforts are critical to building a prosperous future for our community. And whereas advocacy groups and public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday, now therefore I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 25th, 2023, to be Small Business Saturday within the city of Gaithersburg, and encourage the continued support and development of our small businesses and merchants throughout the year. Proclaim this 16th day of October 23, and let's give our small business owners and Neil Harris a great big round of applause. All right, thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Okay, and our last one for the evening is Geography Awareness Week, and I'd like to invite Jan Kim, Matthew Brennan, and Ariel Croft to come join me up here. Thank you guys for being with us. So, Geographic Information Systems Day is a global event celebrated in November every year and is scheduled on November 15th of this year. City of Gaithersburg utilizes GIS for everyday functions of government and is hosting a series of events to promote geography awareness and the power of GIS on November 13th through the 17th. After the GIS Day proclamation, we're going to get a little presentation of GIS and how it's working for us right now. Proclamation of the Mayor and City of Gaithersburg, whereas Geographic Information System, GIS, technology plays a vital role in the daily operations of the City of Gaithersburg, increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of its business functions and the equity of its policy decisions. And whereas government services and assets are tracked and analyzed using GIS to create a comprehensive view of their distribution and to guide their improvement. And whereas GIS allows complex data and spatial relationships to be visualized and presented clearly to the public, the mayor and city council, committees, and city staff, and whereas collaboration to achieve better GIS data and products is fostered among the neighboring jurisdictions, city, county, and state, to build a more accurate and up-to-date GIS system which promotes better decision-making. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim November 15, 2023 as GIS Day, and November 13 through 17, 2023 as Geography Awareness Week. Proclaim this 16th day of October 2023, and let's give our GIS staff a great round of applause. Okay. End of proclamations. Start to the fun part where we get the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Today, we would like to present a data analysis and data visualization by a hotspot analysis.
What, why, and how of hotspot analysis? What is hotspot? We encounter the term hotspot in everyday conversation. We have hotspot on our phone, we have volcanic hotspots, and we have hotspots in our house where the temperature is warmer. Today, we would like to discuss hotspot as a place of more than usual interest, activity, or popularity, such as crime hotspot, and go over hotspot analysis we perform in GIS.
So in GIS, we would like to identify locations where high values are clustering. In order to do that, we have a hypothesis thinking. Things are just happening in random fashion. There's no clustering of high values or low values. And then we start looking at each data point and neighbors and start asking, what is the chance of seeing these high values right here? And if we conclude there's only 1 out of 100 chances all these high values are clustered here compared to all the overall values, we are 99% confident this is a hotspot. So why do we do hotspot? A human brain is very good at naturalizing patterns, recognizing patterns. And when we see clusters, we know right away. However, we are not very good at differentiating the intensity of clusterings. And also when we see clusters, we cannot really determine if the clustering is significant or not. So how do we do hotspot analysis? Well, first, let's look at the city boundary. And let's add a data layer. And let's look at it a little closer. These data events have a transparency in coloring. So when they're happening in close proximity, the colors look darker. And also we start seeing pattern. We see a linear pattern here. Those are following streets. And also we see some data points happening in parking spaces and driveways. These are traffic collision data from MNC-PPC. Montgomery County and MNC-PPC share their traffic collision data on their website. And we wanted to see if there are significant clustering of high values of this occurrence happening. In order to do that as analysts, we have to first define how are we aggregating the data, how are we defining the location. So in this example, we are using 120 feet, which is a large intersection width, to figure out how many events are happening. So larger dots show there are a lot of happening, and smaller dots, smaller occurrence. Now that we answered the first question of how we aggregate data, now we need to figure out the neighbors. In order to determine hotspot analysis, we are comparing clustering of the data as neighbors versus overall. So it's important to decide size of the neighbors. In GIS, we run spatial autocorrelation to figure out at what distance are these clustering of values are happening. What is a good distance that we can use as a neighbors? So in first example, hotspot analysis, we are using letter large neighborhood size and also large sampling location, sample aggregating location. And the second example, we are using smaller neighborhood size and smaller location data to aggregate data. And in here, the red dots show the significant occurring of the collision event. And once we have all this data figured out, we can further interpolate data to create a hotspot surface map, such as shown here.
Another example of how we may use a hotspot analysis would be with community service data. So on an annual basis, the community service team in the city of Gaithersburg provides us with community service nonprofit grant program data, indicating all of the recipients of these programs. So this data comes to us in a format where we are provided addresses as well as the fiscal quarters in which recipients received aid from these programs. The addresses are the most important as they allow us to geocode to points, which you can see on the map here. These points have already been aggregated with larger points, meaning more occurrences. So why does this matter? What do we care about in this instance? So this analysis here is allowing us to make two main observations. So the first of these observations is going to be where in the city are we seeing more community service recipients? This map here is the 2022 Community Service Hotspot interpolation map. So within this map, the areas which are darker red are indicating locations where we're seeing more community service recipients, and these blue areas are showing areas where we're seeing less community service recipients. So the second main observation which we're able to make from this is, as I mentioned previously, this is an annual analysis which we perform. Due to that, we have several years back in terms of analysis, and we are able to compare and contrast and look through time and see how these patterns may be changing. As a bit of a fun thing, if we think back to Jan's why hotspot section where she spoke about how we're very good at visually seeing patterns, we can look at this map here. So this is the same map, however, all of the point data for the addresses has been laid over top. As we look, we can see lots of clustering happening all throughout the city, all the way up to the north and down to the south. However, without this tool, you would probably have a bit of a difficult time determining the actual intensity of this clustering and struggle to determine what areas should be red versus blue.
A map is a visual communication product. In order for a map to be effective, we have to decide what to show prominently, what to show in the background, and what not to show at all, based on the information that we were given. With the hotspot map, we have accomplished the task of identifying where some events are happening more intensely than normal. Now we can start asking further questions, such as what are the factors that are influencing the hotspots on the map, and what can we do about it? Thank you.
And we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions, comments? Lisa?
Can GIS be performed in real time even within an hour, 2 hours of an event?
It is possible. GIS has many different solutions. I guess last year we showed an example of where the field mapping was happening in real time and dashboard reflecting the result. So that's one example of a real-time mapping. And also, if we want to handle bigger, like a larger data, sensor-driven data, there's also technology called GeoEvent server that collects a multiple data sensor feed and then make it into mapping.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just curious, in the heat map we just saw, were the dots representing simply occurrences of need, or were it also the quantity that was needed by the individuals?
Very good question. So the second map, the dot is the recipient data. So even though we are not presenting here, we also, once we have this analysis, we overlay this data with other demographics data, such as household income data and such, so that we can see if we are seeing the way recipients are going, where we expect that the needs are. So this is a more of a once actually the service has been given information.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Does that include county data, or is there an overlay that could be done to show?
This particular data set is based on our own nonprofit grant program. So this is only the city service recipients. in this case.
Great. Loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Again, everyone, I'll remind everyone of the dates. November 13th through the 17th, we'll have a series of events to promote geography awareness, and hope you all will participate. Appreciate it, guys. Next on our agenda is public comments. This is the time the mayor and council like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on any city topic that's not a public hearing tonight. We do have one public hearing, so if you're here to speak about the DRRA legislation, that's coming up next. But if you want to speak on anything else, this would be the time. Is there anybody who'd like to testify on anything tonight? If not, I'm going to look over at our Zoom audience and see if we have anybody on Zoom who'd like to testify. If there's anybody on Zoom who'd like to testify, just use the Zoom raise hand button and I'll call on you. Going once, going twice. Okay, I am not seeing any takers for testimonies tonight. So we will move to our public hearing and invite Frank Johnson to lead us in the presentation on the Development Rights and Responsibilities Agreements enabling legislation.
It's a record.
It's a lot of section. Okay. Here we go. Just had to make sure everything got set up, so for the brief PowerPoint. Good evening. I am, as noted, here to introduce this public hearing on an ordinance that would create a new Chapter 2A to the City Code, which would establish your authority as mayor and city council to enter into what's known as the Development Rights and Responsibilities Agreement, or DRRA. And that is as permitted by Maryland law, section 7-301 of the land use article. It's proposed as a way to add more certainty for developers handling extensive developments in exchange for the ability to secure additional public benefits known as enhanced public benefits beyond what would otherwise be available, such as parks, dedicated funding, and the like. The ordinance adding this new Chapter 2A to the City Code was introduced on September 18, 2023. It's been duly advertised since that date, September 18th, on the city's website. At the present time, in addition to the city's submission, there is one exhibit in the record file. Any individual exhibits which are submitted may be reviewed during regular business hours at City Hall. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record. Otherwise, they will be deemed received in evidence. And staff, after the presentation and any comments, will recommend that the record remain open on the proposed creation of this new Chapter 2A for 10 days until 5 p.m. on October 27th, 2023, with final discussion and potential adoption on December 4th, 2023, reflecting that there will be a time period there where there are no city council meetings. Again, this is being proposed after it was raised in discussions with developers, most particularly regarding Lake Forest Mall. It provides some measure of certainty for developers in establishing several specified limits, such as permissible uses, density, and the like. The laws in place at the time the agreement is executed apply throughout the agreement, unless a change is needed to protect public health, safety, or welfare, as we'll touch on. In exchange, of course, there is the enhanced public benefits beyond that which would otherwise be available. And I do have a brief PowerPoint, which we'll work through, that outlines some of these specifics. The ordinance mandates no agreement. It's simply authorization to enter a DRRA as authorized by state law, and that is the state authority which outlines the purpose, processes, and required findings. This is similar to provisions in Rockville and Frederick. Certainly we'll look to in putting this together, as well as the fairly specific provisions in the land use article. As I mentioned, the purpose is developer certainty and enhanced public benefit in return. The process does require Planning Commission findings that the proposed DRRA is consistent with what we refer to as the comprehensive plan, but the master plan and the city development laws. And we've also added a requirement that the Planning Commission find that there is indeed a proposed enhanced public benefit. I see a little typo there, which many of us looked at this, but there's always one you seem to leave out. But a DRRA provides more certainty, establishes what the permissible, it doesn't lay out the plan, but basically the maximum, what are the permissible uses, density, maximum height, and size, what permits are required or already approved, terms needed to ensure public health, safety, or welfare, and again, the enhanced public benefit. Could be argued that a DRRA is somewhat similar to an annexation agreement in providing that certainty, applying law that's in place when the agreement is signed, and the certainty matter is a matter of financial certainty. Sometimes it's not the developer that is concerned, but I think we may hear in support in the one exhibit that is in the record that it is a matter of financial security as well. So in terms of the process, the developer has to apply. The mayor and city council can simply reject, and the proposed ordinance specifies that. If not rejected, though, it has to go to the Planning Commission for the findings, again, the required findings that is consistent with the master plan and that there is an enhanced public benefit. A public hearing is required before an agreement can be entered, and then, of course, a resolution as well. There are some specific requirements as to what the contents have to include, which is the development details we've touched on. The duration, it's 5 years if it's not otherwise specified, which could be less or even more. What permits are required. There does need to be a statement about the consistency and the enhanced public benefits. And just to be sure, we have a slide just underscoring the required findings from the Planning Commission that allows this to move forward. In terms of the enhanced public benefits, at applicant expense, the definition includes but is not limited to, so it could be more broad than more than required open space, more traffic capacity. Again, these have to be enhanced beyond what would otherwise be available. More public service, safety, recreation, education facilities, real property, or, I want to mention there at the end, financial compensation to allow that benefit for the city to then provide based on that. State law does protect the city's ability to make needed changes if it's needed for public health, safety, or welfare. That can include suspending or terminating the agreement, or applying changes in the city law or ordinances that would otherwise not apply. It can be amended, certainly by mutual agreement. It does have to be referred to the Planning Commission, and they have to determine that that proposed amendment is consistent with the master plan. Somewhat the fun parts for those of us who are attorneys, the recording, enforcement, and duration. We've mentioned the agreement would be void 5 years afterwards unless otherwise specified, but recording is required actually within 20 days after the agreement is entered, and the city will record the agreements. Parties can enforce the agreement. It is as an agreement. The enforcement part would not come under the statute, but would simply be contractual enforcement, and there are no third-party rights. And again, a summary, this is authorization. It is not entering an agreement or requiring the entry of any agreement. In fact, state law provides the ordinance can't provide that. It does have to go through a process, which is the Planning Commission findings, public hearing. It can be terminated, it can be suspended, or later changes to the law can be applied if there is a need to protect public health or safety. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Frank. Appreciate it. Who wants to go first? Lisa.
Thank you, Frank. With the year five expiration, what happens to year 6? Do they start this process again, or if the agreement expires?
Well, the agreement would expire, and now the DRRA itself can provide a different timeline. The 5-year applies if it doesn't say anything, if it doesn't specify. Now, it is possible, my guess would be, as we've sometimes seen with contracts that are, let's say, 5 years, and you're getting close to that, and there's a desire to continue, that's part of the amendment process, too.
Okay, for the amendment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, this doesn't sound like a bad deal. Where is there risk here?
I would say there's risk in entering any agreement. This is simply authority to do so. So it would depend on your judgment and the Planning Commission's judgment in finding that it's consistent with the master plan. The reality is that Maryland, being a late vesting state, for certain time, yes, we would say, those of us in planning would say, well, that's a good thing because it always gives the city the option to make a legal change if needed. But that doesn't always work for development. It doesn't always work for development if you have serious financial entities that are involved that are necessary for projects to move forward. And the larger projects are not, as I'm sure others will speak with more eloquence than I can, there's a lot involved in that in terms of finances, in terms of some level of certainty. The benefit that this offers is the chance to offer that, but in exchange, the city gets more than it otherwise would through the development process. And having been involved in development processes at the annexation level and instead at the planning level where you're simply coming through for a site plan, there's a big difference in what you can ask for. In fact, it's fairly limited in some ways at the development stage. So that's when we say this is somewhat similar to an annexation agreement, that's potentially a good thing because, again, the emphasis is on the enhanced public benefit, something we really couldn't ask for just through a straight development process.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Frank. In just going through the end here, when you mentioned that the city will have to record the agreement, it reminded me that the county just increased the recordation fees. Who would actually pay for the recording that with the county?
Under state law, the city is exempt from recording fees.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you. That was.
Yeah, and we just had that discussion because that also applies to our affordable housing deeds of trust, and we often have to point that out to the closing agent that no, we are exempt, and there is state law that provides it.
Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. I appreciate the presentation. And I may need a little bit of education here. And so at what phase would the DRRAs apply? Is it something that has to be negotiated and entered into early on, like sketch plan and prior, or is it something that if they want to come in and invest certain rights, that they can come in at later stages of approval?
There's no requirement as to when it would apply. It could be that our planning staff or developers could explain better in terms of process where it makes sense to apply, but generally it would make sense as you're beginning a development project. And the reason for that is because that then lays out the level of certainty that you have. It may be subsequent to I would think, personally, subsequent to a concept plan, because once you pass the concept plan are when there are some significant costs then moving forward with development projects, with significant development projects. they're not all the same, but that would, earlier rather than later would probably be the impetus for this, again, for the developer certainty, but then also that would be when we would be asking for the enhanced public benefit, because we're not going to be doing that after something's already been approved.
So we've seen the approval, some of our approvals, while not vested, they don't expire. And so my question would be, what happens if we approve a plan at the early stages, predicated on the benefit or whatever's found in the DRA? The DRA expires, but the plan is now approved, and it doesn't expire. What are we faced with then? Can we hold them to, well, we approved that plan based on the DRA having a new fire station. That obligation to have that fire station expired when the DRA expired, but the plan was approved on the premise that we were getting a new fire station there. How do you reconcile that?
You would be in that case, if it expires, by my understanding of the way it would work with the expiration, if it's allowed to expire, then you would be working with what was approved, what was part of the approval. Now, if something was built in as part of the approval, which, as I said, is a little bit more limited in terms of what we can do, but if it is part of that development approval, then it's a question of how do you enforce it. It can be enforced under, let's say, the SDP or the final plan. If not, however, and if it's purely as part of the DRRA and we let the DRRA expire, in that case, there would be no means to enforce it. And that is the power of that 5-year expiration. So that's not a throwaway. That's something to consider very seriously in entering into this.
Could you make it unexpired? Wait, how do you say? Without expiration?
The law doesn't, it says it expires in 5 years unless otherwise specified. Lynn has dealt with some similar agreements in the past, so she may add her thinking on that as well. I would say there should be a date, but you're not limited to 5 or 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
I will take you back to law school. It would violate the rule against perpetuities.
Perpetuity, like
Yeah.
But you probably haven't,
grandchildren?
you probably haven't heard that term in many years.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, it shouldn't have an indefinite period, but it could be a very long period of time.
So the issue that I'm trying to get at is kind of when we first had sponsorship, where I was asking questions about, well, does the DRA fall within our legislative authority, because it's contractual, or does it fall in our zoning authority, which is quasi-judicial, meaning those courts can come in and look at us and look what we do. And so I'm wondering if we approve something in our quasi-judicial role, but a condition of that approval is that the DRA is in effect, and the DRA then expires, does that plan now expire, or does the review of that condition now become a quasi-judicial, which I don't like as much as my unfettered legislative act authority.
I don't know that we would recommend making a condition of approval having a DRRA in effect. It's not impossible that could happen, but
I'd be less concerned with the DRA and more concerned with the public benefit or whatever we tried to get out of that. And I also think, by the way, that we should have expiration periods on our approvals, but we could talk about that some other time.
Right.
I mean, I think the practicality, though, is the appeal of any of your quasi-judicial decisions is really only a 30-day appeal period. So, I mean, in all likelihood, the DRA is going to extend longer than that appeal period.
I just want to make sure we're thinking through the interplay between this, which seems like a very good and beneficial thing, with our quasi-judicial zoning and process, to make sure that they actually do mesh together. So I'll leave it at that and just let you mull on it. Thanks.
Great. Neil.
All right, so again, just as a quick summary of what I heard, there's a trade between the two parties, between the city and the developer. we get an extra benefit for the public, and they get some certainty that they can take to the bank, basically, right? Helps them get funding.
Short and sweet, yes, sir.
All right. Could have been the whole, one slide in the whole presentation.
Well,
All right, so I have a long question that was sent in by Jamil Hernandez, and it's like a Rob question almost. Scenario, a developer petitions the city to rezone a parcel from something to something else. The rezoned parcel, they get certain new uses by right. Does the DRRA authorize authorities being considered allow the city to more broadly bargain for stuff during the rezoning through a DRRA so the city can get public uses or other concessions it might not have been able to get otherwise through the rezoning process?
if a DRRA went through the process, it would have to be found to be consistent with the master plan. So you're not getting outside of what would otherwise be consistent with that. And with the enhanced public benefit, it sounds like that's a general question. Sometimes you don't like to answer hypotheticals, but it sounds like a DRRA could have potential benefit. Again, noting the process and noting the findings that would be required.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I just want to follow up on Rob's line of questioning a little bit, because I think I know where you were going as far as the enhanced public benefits. Mm-hmm. When we're approving an SDP, and we would be including requirements with that, it's approved with these conditions, can we add in these public benefits that we're agreeing to in a DRRA as conditions of the approval, so that even in the future, should a DRA expire, they're still vested in the approval of the actual plan?
That's a good thinking right there.
I would recommend that they stand, they can certainly stand in coordination, but I would not use the existence of the DRRA to change what we normally could require as part of a development plan. If it may be that the development approval would reference the DRRA, but again, it's the DRRA that gives you the enhanced public benefits, and it's the DRRA that has, while coordinating, it does have a separate operation from the plan approval itself.
I understand that. I'm just thinking that, especially if the DRA is entered earlier in the process, and the plan is then going to be accounting for, especially if it's involving land or benefits that are going to be sitting in a particular space, then one would think that the SDP would then reflect those. So then, should the DRA expire, though, that still has a geographic footprint in the plan.
Again, I think the concern would be extending our zoning powers beyond what they would be.
Sure.
That's really not the intent. I mean, the DRRA is a standalone, and that's the problem with the 5-year termination. It may refer to that, but it could also be a matter of condition that to say, well, you get to do this, but if the DRRA expires, for example, if the DRRA expires, one of the issues may be that a different set of laws may begin to apply depending on where we are in the development process. So, again, one of the benefits of the certainty to the developer means it's probably not as much of an open question as to whether it would actually be there or not, but I would have some concern with extending what we would normally get in a development approval. I mean, they could probably refer to each other, certainly, and coordinate, but to add it in and then say, well, even if the DRRA goes away, we can now enforce that under the zoning code if we were to try to enforce it in court, which is, again, we think worst case scenario, without having a DRRA to back it up, we wouldn't be able to enforce it.
So basically what I'm hearing is it's going to be important if we authorize these to come into existence, that when we're negotiating these, that we have a realistic understanding of the scope of the project and the length of time it's going to take to execute.
And careful coordination of the dates. will be one of those key factors.
Very good. Thank you.
As you've mentioned.
Lisa.
So the risk here sounds like it is, for example, if I did a DRA for 5 years and if the facility was a fire station for the good of the public, and the fire station is going to be here for years, and the DRA, if I went with the default of 5 years, I could be in trouble.
Well, let me try to hazard an explanation here, and you tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
We enter into a DRA that requires a fire station, and then the expiration of the DRA is 5 years. If the 5 years expires and they haven't gone forward with their development, we may lose we're at risk of losing our fire station, but they're at risk at losing the certainty of the rest of their plan, because we could then say, well, it's in the city's best interest to rethink some of the approvals that we've given in the SDP. Is that correct?
Can we? That
Well,
seems...
and the DRA doesn't need to run the length of however long the fire station would be in service. We're just trying to get the fire station built.
So
Does that, because it sounded like you were saying, well, the fire station's gonna be around forever.
that was
That's
my initial question, and I didn't ask well. So it's for the authority to build whatever it is that we're building for the benefit of the public and give the developer the certainty. That's the authority that we're gonna do this thing. And we're gonna give you 5 years to do it.
So
Well,
this is,
the
this
DRRA
is, this is why
does
Frank
not-
says
does not deal with the
hypotheticals are
authority.
hard.
Yeah, the DRRA is not going to give you extra authority to build or extra authority. It's the certainty of the law that applies, because again, that's why you've got to have the Planning Commission finding right up front that whatever is proposed in the DRRA is consistent with the master plan. So we're not going beyond generally the development approval. Again, the key question is the certainty of the applicable law, and then on the other hand, for our benefit, would be the enhanced public benefit. So, for instance, if there's a fire station being built, that it has to be consistent with the master plan anyway. So the difference would be is if they're in the midst of building it or at some point in the stage, the DRRA going away doesn't mean that it wouldn't necessarily be built or that there wouldn't be a basis for that, because it had to be consistent with the master plan. It had to be under the zoning. It has to be consistent with the development regulations anyway. The difference would be, as the mayor was saying, the certainty versus then the extra benefit.
What if, I think the risk, to address the risk question, if we approved an SDP and a DRA, and the DRA called for a fire station, and the developer went forward with the approvals in the SDP, never built the fire station, the DRA expires, what's the risk to the city in that
You're
case?
identifying then, so that we're clear what we're talking about. The fire station is the extra enhanced public benefit that we wouldn't otherwise get.
That's what they're.
That could be the risk that would be lost, but on the other hand, for the developer, would be the lack of certainty then as to the applicable laws.
Right, and I think what the risk is
Zoning,
to the
et cetera,
developer,
et cetera.
what the risk is to the developer is, in this state, you can change the rules underneath while the process
Very
is
late
going
vesting.
forward. We could suddenly require 50% affordable housing, or reduce the height ability to one story or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a little bit more directly answer your question, Mayor, it wouldn't impact the approved SDP, because assuming that the SDP hadn't expired, the SDP would still stand. However, you all could, as Neil just said, you could amend the zoning, there could be new stormwater requirements, there could be, all kinds of new laws that would then impact the project.
Right, like a law to put a fire station
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Right. Going down fire station.
So, there's risk on both sides if the DRA expires. So if there is a natural incentive for the developer partner to abide by the contract as well. That's the point. Anyway, have we gotten we don't have to make a decision tonight. This is a public hearing, and I do want to give the public a chance to comment on it. If there's anybody from the public who'd like to testify tonight, we ask that you come up to the podium, state your name and address or affiliation, as it were. Keep your comments no more than 3 minutes. Please go right ahead.
Good evening, Bob Dalrymple with Selzer Gervich. I'm here on behalf of WRS, who is the owner and developer of the Lake Forest Mall property. We are in support of you enacting this enabling legislation, and if it is enacted, we would want to be pursuing a DRRA in conjunction with Lake Forest. I don't want to talk about the specific terms of that because we don't know. This is just to get the enabling legislation to be able to do that. Let me just say on a general basis why I think this is good for the city of Gaithersburg. The late vesting in Maryland is a huge problem, and it's a huge problem for large and complex projects, and because of the risk. And I get asked, and I was asked in the specific instance of Lake Forest Mall, could they change the zoning on us at any time up until we start construction? I said, yes, they could. They're like, well, how are we going to invest millions and millions and millions of dollars and attract the debt and equity to make this project go forward if we don't have any certainty? So I would suggest that, Maryland, being a late vesting state, is probably one of the more difficult states in the nation to do large-scale projects. So I would view the DRRA as a huge economic development tool for the city. And again, the enabling legislation doesn't mean you have to do a DRRA. It gives you that opportunity to do it. With respect to Lake Forest Mall, we would be looking for a DRRA that was over a period of time that we thought was mutually would cover the build out of the project. It doesn't do us any good to have a DRRA that's going to conk out halfway through the implementation of the approvals. We would also look at it as being something that we would negotiate in conjunction with the schematic development plan, and perhaps have it approved if we were to get that far, as part of the or concurrent with the approval of the SDP. Because that's when we're going to be negotiating. The city's going to say, can you move up the delivery of this, that, or the other thing? And we're going to be saying, well, we need to know that our vesting is early and that the laws are frozen and they can't change on us. And in return for that, we're willing to do these other things that are going to be locked into the SDP. I see, is my time up?
No, 17 more seconds.
So we do view it as a very necessary opportunity to be able to pursue this project, and we are hopeful that you will enable this to move forward so that we can use this valuable tool.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate it.
Good evening. Gary Unterberg with Rogers Consulting, also with the Lake Forest team. And there's a lot of exciting things going on with Lake Forest right now, and we look for working with the city, and we think the DRRA, got to figure out a shorter name, but anyways, that's a tool in the toolbox, and hopefully you will pass this so we can advance Lake Forest Mall. And I think one of the larger things Bob mentioned is that the timing, there's a number of things with early vesting, we could advance a number of things with Lake Forest. It's complicated, but there's a lot of exciting things going on right now. So look forward to working with the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other testimonies here? Otherwise, I'm going to check our Zoom audience. Anybody on Zoom would like to testify? Just use the raise hand button. And I am not seeing a hand go up, so we will close that public testimony on this. Okay, so Frank, if there's any sort of clarifying statements that you want to, in the meantime, while the record is open, to send to the council to allay the questions or concerns that you've heard tonight, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
And staff recommends that mayor and council hold our record open until Friday, October 27, with anticipated policy discussion on Monday, December 4th. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 4-0. So our record is open until October 27th. If anybody has anything they'd like to submit in writing, please send it to cityhall@gaithersburgmd.gov. All right, thank you very much, Frank. Next is from the mayor and city council, and tonight we are starting, let me just see, I have this written down who we're starting with Councilmember Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to, didn't have the chance last week as I was excruciating pain. At some points I was actually standing in the back of the room. It's because I did a 4-day charity bike ride that I do every year from Pittsburgh down to Gaithersburg in support of a wonderful charity called Operation Second Chance, which supports wounded warriors, their rehabilitation. Unfortunately, that meant that I missed Oktoberfest, which is, it's shattering to me. I heard it was a wonderful Oktoberfest. Had folks that came from out of town and were singing the praises of Oktoberfest and let me know they saw my signs everywhere. That's as much as I'll say about that. But I did lament that I had to miss that opportunity, but it was a good cause to miss. Just wanted to make a brief note, I guess, in the time since our last meeting. The world has almost gone upside down. I'm speaking about the tragedy that is unfolding in the Middle East, in Israel and the Palestinian territories. Just wanted to say that my condolences to the innocents that lost their lives in the tragic terrorist attack by certain militants against innocent Israelis. And I think if you're watching the news unfold right now, a unfortunate byproduct of what occurred is a humanitarian disaster with respect to the Palestinians, particularly in the Gaza Strip, as well as elsewhere. I think that all of us have to speak and stand up against terror, but we also have to stand up and speak in favor of protecting the lives of innocent civilians where we can. So I've been, watching that unfold, as I'm sure all of us have, every single day. And so my thoughts and prayers go out to all of those that are impacted. That's all.
Thank you, Rob. We'll go to Neil.
Okay, so been a busy couple of weeks. I spoke to the new president of the Suburban Maryland Transportation Alliance, which is an advocacy organization for improving transportation in the region. It's been pretty much radio silent since 2019, partially due to COVID, but at any rate, they're now teaming up with the Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance and reconstituting themselves. And I was offered a board seat, and since I have nothing else to do, I accepted the position. Hopefully it won't start up until after November 7th. So look forward to doing my best to help bring some sanity to transportation planning in the region, but it's been 9 years and hasn't worked quite yet. Council in the Communities was held and really had a great turnout at Gaithersburg High School. We definitely heard from the community what they liked and what they were concerned about. I thought it went very well. And also went to Oktoberfest. Unfortunately, because I had a booth in the back, I didn't get to see much of it. My wife did bring me a nice crab cake sandwich, which took me an hour and a half to eat because I was busy talking to people, but it was a great day. And everybody I talked to said they had a wonderful time. And finally, I attended the Leadership Montgomery Homecoming for the class of 19, which Rob and I were part of. It was actually for all the classes, so there were a few members of 19 and a lot of members of other classes, and it's always a great event. And if anybody's considering ways to find out more about our county and how it works and a way to really meet some special people that you'll become almost family with, I recommend the Leadership Montgomery program highly. All right, that's all for me.
Thank you, Neil. We'll go to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended many of those events, and additionally attended an event called Mujer, Fuerza y Coraje, which translates to Women with Strength and Courage. An organization dedicated to pregnant women and who've also given birth and their young babies, to make sure that they have the care and supplies that they need. This organization is also working towards getting their nonprofit status, which is a lot of work. So they're in the community helping others, and also striving to become a nonprofit so they could do things at a greater level. So it was an incredible event, hosted over at Garrett Park, right in the back. Griffith Park, right in the back of us. And fantastic pupusas and dancing, so it was an incredible event. Today I had the opportunity to go to MML and attended a forum on extreme hate and anti-Semitism, and it was emotional, and the comments given were I thought were appropriate for the event, to hear from many different backgrounds and races and ethnicities, and support of Israel and what's going on. It's an incredible time to stand up against hate and against those who want to harm others who don't deserve it. I hope that Egypt opens their borders so that people can find safe refuge. That is my desire for this event that's going on right now, and it's well, not just interesting. It's pretty incredible to, as we sit in the comfort of our own homes and watch this unravel across the television and the news and social media. And today, actually, sat home with me as I listened to others who have friends and family in those parts of the world who are in prayer, that to know even that their families are hopefully still alive. So I keep all in thoughts and prayers those who desire to help, and for those who desire to continue hate, I hope their hearts find a better way to live. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well said, thank you.
Yeah, it's well said. And you were going to do one announcement.
And I'm going to do an announcement. Gaithersburg residents will cast their ballots for 3 city council members on Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. Mail-in ballot applications and ballots are available. Applications can be picked up from City Hall or completed electronically on the city's website. There is no registration deadline, as the city is offering same-day voter registration for the 2023 election. To confirm registration, please contact the Montgomery County Board of Elections at 240-777-VOTE. The city is conducting a hybrid election for 2023. One vote center will be located at the Activity Center at Bullard Park for in-person voting. In addition, there will be 7 ballot drop boxes located throughout the city. Early voting sessions will be held at the Activity Center at Bullard Park on Sunday, October 29th from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. Voter Center will be open on Election Day, Tuesday, November 7th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. For complete election information, go to www.gaithersburgmd.gov/elections or contact Elections Clerk Lauren Klingler at 240-805-1087 or email cityelections@gaithersburgmd.gov.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll go to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended a number of the events that my colleagues have mentioned, including Counts in the Communities and Oktoberfest, and I want to thank everybody that came out to those, but I'd like to spend most of my time by acknowledging the horror that is unfolding in the Middle East, and I want to associate myself with the comments of Vice President Henderson and Councilmember Wu. I haven't been able to comment about this on social media because every time I started to try to write something, I couldn't find the words, which, as many of you who know me would agree, that says quite a lot. My thoughts and prayers are with the people of Israel and all of our Jewish friends and neighbors who are hurting tonight here in Gaithersburg and across the globe. My heart particularly aches for the families of the nearly 200 innocent civilians who were taken hostage by the Hamas terrorists, especially the children. This strikes me deeper than I have been able to articulate to this point. My personal experience with terrorism, albeit a very different situation, makes the events unfolding in the Holy Land all the more personal to me. Having been held against my will, and I know all too well the fear and the tension and the anxiety of having my own life threatened by an individual with an agenda. And when I think about the fear my own family and friends felt during that time, it just breaks my heart for the loved ones of the hostages in Israel. But amidst our fear and our sadness and our anger, we must remember that we cannot allow acts of terror to drive a wedge in our own community. Our diversity remains a strength here in Gaithersburg, and we cannot allow anti-Semitism or Islamophobia to take root. And just as our prayers are with our Jewish community, we must also extend our love to our Palestinian community, who has seen their cause hijacked by Hamas terrorists. As Dr. King told us, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. We need to support each other, search for common ground, and pray that a peaceful solution can be found quickly to this war, and that the hostages will be returned unharmed. And I have no real good transition out of that, so I'm just going to read an announcement. It's my understanding we need a motion to conduct a closed executive session this evening. Mr. Mayor, I move that the mayor and council of the city of Gaithersburg conduct a closed executive session immediately following its session tonight, Monday, October 16th, 2023, pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, section 3-305B1I, the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction. The topic to be discussed is a personnel matter to conduct the city manager's annual performance review.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 4-0. Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you for your statement. I will just echo a few things. I want to thank staff for putting together council and the community last week, which was very productive, if not always happy, but very productive. I want to give big congratulations to special events staff on Oktoberfest. It was spectacular. Helps when you get perfect weather. Hopefully we do for all of our events from now until eternity. I want to, speaking of special events, I want to congratulate my good friend and longtime city employee, Carolyn Crosby, on her retirement. She retired. Oktoberfest was her last day. She worked with me side by side in the book festival for the last 15 years. And I want to, and I also want to mention that I've spent the last couple of days at the Maryland Municipal League Fall Conference as well, and attended some really good sessions, and I will leave it at that. We're going to go to from the city manager.
I have nothing to report this evening, Your Honor.
Okay, and we do not have Tom Lonergan Sr. here because he is at Maryland Municipal League Fall Conference. So we're not going to do economic development update. We're going to move right into ordinances, resolutions, and regulations. And let me just pull up what's first. Sean Stevens, I believe. Yes, Sean is on the way up here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
The resolution before you tonight is to authorize the city manager to negotiate and enter into a contract for the purchase of up to 16 police vehicles. 10 police vehicles, 3 unmarked and 7 marked, were scheduled for replacement in FY24 due to their age, condition, and reliability. An additional 4 police vehicles were approved by the city manager as a mid-year FY24 new addition to the fleet, as 4 new police officers were added to the city's budget. There are currently 3 police vehicles severely damaged, which are being inspected to see if they will be totaled or be able to be repaired. One of these 3 damaged vehicles, Unit 7881, is one of the vehicles being replaced in FY24. The 2 other damaged vehicles, Unit 7900, a 2018 Ford Explorer, and Unit 7916, a 2020 Ford Explorer hybrid utility, both marked, are being assessed to determine if they can be repaired or not. Staff wishes to utilize State of Maryland Contract 001B336000246 to purchase these vehicles. The State of Maryland has approved pricing for the 2024 model year police vehicles under this contract. Criswell Performance Cars Incorporated has provided the city a quote in the amount of $668,512 for up to 13 marked and 3 unmarked 2024 Dodge Durango police pursuit vehicles. Utilizing the State of Maryland contract meets all requirements under the city's procurement policy. Staff compared these quotes with State of Maryland Contract 001B3600251 with Hertridge Fleet Services Incorporated for the same 16 2024 Dodge Durango police vehicles, which totaled $671,264. This comparison showed a savings of 0.41% by purchasing these vehicles from Criswell Performance Cars Incorporated, not to mention Criswell is a local Gaithersburg company. Staff recommends utilizing State of Maryland Contract 001B3600246 with Criswell Performance Cars Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $668,512. There are sufficient funds in the Asset Replacement Fund. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Sean. Questions, comments? Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this may not be a question for Sean as much as it is for Chief Soroka, but knowing that we're looking to add additional officers, are we good with the number of vehicles that we have, and should we be considering that under our contract?
That's why we've requested, without the wrecked vehicles that aren't being replaced in FY24, we're requesting resolution to enter into a contract to purchase 14, which is 4 new mid-fiscal year additions to the new police officers.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, would someone like to move the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you very much. Carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Sean. Sean, I will note that I appreciate the comparison with the 2 contracts, with the 2 offers. That's helpful. Sunil Prithviraj, you are next.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. The resolution I have in front of you this evening is to authorize city manager to negotiate and enter into a contract for a wood siding repair at Wells Robertson House. There's a lot of information I provided in the agenda. My supervisor told me I'm telling a story, but there is a reason why we provided all that information to show our due diligence to make the right decision that is in the best interest of the city. So I try to concise all that information into summarize, as much as possible. As part of the overall maintenance program, City Hall, Wells Robertson House, and associated shed were evaluated for exterior repairs. Our wood siding at City Hall building, that is this part of the building where the wood frame is, and the Wells Robertson House showed a significant dry rot damage and the water damage. So based on the exterior conditions, city staff proposed projects to replace damaged wood siding, window sills, trim boards, and the funding was approved in FY24 for City Hall and FY25 for the Wells Robertson House. So due to the similarity in the type of work that needs to be done for both the buildings, city issued a solicitation combining both buildings. So the solicitation included 4 different options for pricing. So the option 1 was to price just for City Hall wood frame building. Option 2 is for the price for Wells Robertson House. Option 3 is combining both of them to see how much money that we can save if we combine both projects together. And option 4 was to price to repair the shed or to demolish the shed, just to compare the prices. So the prices that we received for these options are included in the agenda. So after bids were received, city entered into a contract to purchase 12 South Summit Avenue property. Now the city is moving forward with the purchase, and it will be evaluated to relocate the staff and the city services to that new building. As a result, staff recommended conducting only a priority repairs for City Hall building, the wood frame building right here. And this allows us time to develop appropriate plan both for 12 South Summit Avenue property and the City Hall properties. So based on the new limited work scope that is address only as needed repairs, city staff solicited additional services with a limited scope of work, and we received the price proposal that is under $30,000, which does not require mayor council approval, and we awarded a contract to Dana Construction. They were the lowest price proposers for that. As of since I submitted this document, and as of today, we almost completed 95% of the repairs for this building. So based on the new limited scope of work, with the purchase of 12 South Summit Avenue property, city will be acquiring additional storage space for the city use. So the staff conducted a cost-benefit analysis for the Wells Robertson House storage shed and determined it is in the best interest of the city to remove the shed altogether because that shed requires extensive repairs, and the cost for the repairs were way exceeding what the benefit city could acquire. So we solicited a separate price just to demolish the building and dispose of it. We received a price proposal for $4,675 to remove the shed in its entirety. So based on the reduced funding needed for the City Hall project, the staff recommended moving FY24 funds from a City Hall CIP to a Wells Robertson House CIP, which originally was scheduled for 25 completion. The relocation of funds were approved by the city manager. This approval helps us to complete the project ahead of schedule. So upon evaluation of bids for a Wells Robertson House wood siding repair, in response to RFP 2023-020, the lowest bidder, Colossal Contractor Inc., meets all the qualification requirements set forth in the solicitation, and the price is fair and reasonable. Therefore, city recommends awarding the contract to Colossal Contractors in the amount of $156,000 and $326.50, which includes $97,188 for the core scope of work and $59,138.50 as allowances to address hidden unseen conditions to complete the project successfully. So I request your approval to award the contract to complete the project.
Thank you for this great detailed narrative.
There's a lot of information.
I don't have a question, and this is probably pot and kettle type stuff. And I recognize I asked for more information on how we got there. This might have been a little bit.
Are you unsatisfied? We're very proud of this.
No, this is a great narrative. It's just, yes.
Even though it's a small project, we want to show all the process that we went through and all the details to make a best decision for the city. So
Fair enough. I recognize I asked for it, so.
Okay, Neil.
You wanted to make us pay, is that what it is? All right, so my question is this, the base cost and the contingency cost, the contingency is a very high percentage of the initial cost. Is that normal in a case like
no,
this?
it is specifically for these kind of projects. Because when we open the wood siding, we don't know what we're going to encounter because there is extensive damage. So we cannot open that wood siding prior to awarding the contract in order to see what the damage is. So what we did is we included unit prices, like say, for example, 2x6, to replace a certain sections, how much it's going to cost. So we considered all the risks that can happen while we open the wood siding. So we asked for the unit prices. That's the reason why it is such a high, because it's an older building and we cannot see what's going on inside, how much damage it is there, or especially the structural damage. All of that needs to be replaced before we put the new wood siding.
All right, makes sense. Thank you.
If no other questions, would someone like to move the resolution?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we are going to policy discussion on our annexation petition for the Walnut Hill Shopping Center. And welcome to Kirk Eby.
Welcome. Thank you. Just going to open up my presentation here.
Sure, take your time.
Hopefully a short presentation for you guys. to hit the right key combination so I don't lock the computer again. So good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is the policy discussion for annexation petition X-9510-2023. The applicant is Granite Partners LLC, and they have submitted a petition requesting annexation of approximately 9¼ acres of land into the city and to establish C2 and CD zoning for the annexed property. Public hearing was held on September 5th, 2023, and the council's record closed on September 29th, and there are a total of 98 exhibits in the record. So the area of annexation, shown on this map here, is located along South Frederick Avenue between North Westland Drive and South Westland Drive, and it includes the Walnut Hill Shopping Center at 16531 South Frederick Avenue, a restaurant at 8941 South Westland Drive, and undeveloped property at 8939 South Westland Drive. And there's also a portion of the abandoned Maryland 3055 right-of-way and a portion of the North Westland Drive right-of-way included within the annexation area. So following the public hearing, the applicant submitted a supplemental statement, which is exhibit number 95 in the record, and that was to address comments and questions that were received during the hearing. So a supplemental statement explains the importance of the retail pad sites, aka the Sheets site, for the revitalization of the entire shopping center, including attracting the grocery store, also, now we know it's an Aldi's, and also helping other tenants with their businesses. It also notes that a final traffic impact study will be submitted when the final site plan comes in for the Sheets. It does describe the center's contribution to the implementation of the proposed bus rapid transit along Maryland 355, discusses the market competition and the site selection for the Sheets at this particular location, and it does reiterate their support for the tax abatement for the 8941 North Westland Drive property. So since the public hearing, 6 exhibits have been received, including the supplemental statement that I previously discussed. The County Council also submitted a resolution, which is exhibit number 98, wherein they agreed with the County Planning Board which found that the proposed zoning and density are not substantially different from the existing county zoning and density. So the city has been approached by both the applicant and the owner of 8941 North Westland Drive to establish an annexation agreement for each of their properties. So on this slide here, and the next slide, this talks about the general proposed terms for the Walnut Hill Shopping Center annexation agreement, which I sort of went over a little bit, or we went over a little bit of this at the last meeting, so I'll just quickly go through. So one of the things is they want the annexation plan to count as a concept plan. That way they can go straight to the final site plan, preliminary and final site plan combined. There's a requirement that certain site improvements have to be completed within 6 months of the annexation. The agreement does include a development schedule. There are some facade improvements that also must be completed prior to the UNO permit being issued for the Sheets. It establishes an overall parking ratio for the center, regardless of the use, so that it's easier to administer and also easier for the applicant to swap out uses as market things change. It does allow a lease line to be created for the Sheet, so this is not subdivision, it's just a lease line. And it clarifies stormwater management requirements, and it requires the owner to obtain new use and occupancy permits for all of the existing tenants within 3 months of the annexation agreement being recorded, but that the fees will be waived for that from the city. And the owner also has to provide as-built stormwater drawings. Subdivision, again, will be prohibited until a new land use element is adopted, or 7 years, whichever happens first. And the agreement will expire after 25 years or a major redevelopment. So if they were to tear the whole center down, then the annexation agreement would no longer be valid. For the other property at 8941 North Westland Drive, the annexation agreement includes these terms. So there's a real property tax abatement in there, acknowledgement that the existing uses, signs, and site conditions are grandfathered into the city. It allows participation in the city's Economic Toolbox Grant Program, and the city will issue new use and occupancy permits at no cost for the tenants that are in that particular building. The existing conditions will serve as the concept and site schematic development plan for the CD zone, and because of the CD zone, that just simplifies if they wanted to do some small change, like a small addition or something, then there's just a one step instead of having to go back and do the SDP as well. And then the agreement will expire when the tax abatement also ceases. And I believe the tax abatement is for, I think we're proposing 10 years, is that correct, Lynn? And so basically a maximum of 10 years. So next steps. Staff is supportive of the annexation petition. And as I mentioned during the public hearing, the annexation petition precedes any development reviews and any actual construction. So should the annexation be approved by the Mayor and City Council, the applicant will then need to submit site development plans for review by the Planning Commission, and that will provide additional details like building elevations and landscaping. Staff further notes that an annexation petition, once approved, does not become effective for 45 days, which is in accordance with the referendum provisions of state law. So if this were approved tonight, it wouldn't become effective until, I believe, November 30th is the 45th day. So in tonight's packet, staff has provided an updated version of the resolution annexing the properties, along with 2 separate resolutions that will authorize the city manager to negotiate an annexation agreement for each of the properties that I mentioned. So should the mayor and council wish to move forward with final action on the annexation tonight, 3 separate motions are required, so 1 for each of those resolutions. So the first motion would be for the annexation resolution, or the resolution to annex, I guess, and then followed by a separate motion for each of the 2 resolutions that authorize the city manager to negotiate an annexation agreement for each property. And staff is available for questions. There are members from the applicant's team here as well, if there are any clarification questions.
Great, thank you, Kurt. As for the least important opinion here, which is mine, because I don't have a vote, I am supportive of this. I think it's unusual, and I think it's worth recognizing that when we have a redevelopment proposal before us, generally there's a fair amount of pushback from the community for one reason or another. In this case, there was widespread support for this project, or for the annexation and for what project could come. And the only heartburn seemed to be about the sheets, and I think that there's a fair justification for sheets sort of being an integral part of the rest of this happening. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm excited to welcome this. I would be excited to welcome it, assuming the council votes in the way that I hope they'll vote. I'd be excited to welcome this property, or these properties, into the city of Gaithersburg, and under the auspices of our planning and zoning. So who'd like to speak next? Lisa.
Thank you, Kirby. I question, and if this has already been addressed, I apologize. Can you describe what unannexation is here? I see it in a reference to an exhibit 12A, and I don't see the exhibit, but it talks about I think I'm using the right term, unannexation on Westland Drive.
So I think probably what you're referring to, I'm going to go back to the map. So originally, when the annexation was being proposed, staff had suggested including South Westland Drive's right-of-way as well. And when we researched a little bit further, we realized that there was some land that was annexed as part of the South Frederick Avenue and the churches across the street. There was sort of a straight line, and it went kind of straight across. And when the Exxon station came in, there's a sort of a little curved piece of land there. There's a tiny little piece that was not included in either of those annexations. So unfortunately, if we did annex the South Westland Drive right-of-way at this time, it would actually create an enclave, which we can't have, even though it'll be this tiny little, 20 square foot area. So we actually removed that from the annexation area for this particular annexation petition. And staff had alluded to the idea that at some point, maybe we could come back and annex the rest of Southwestland Drive. In addition, when the Exxon was annexed, originally the property next to it, which is where the Easy Storage is now, that was still in the county, and by annexing the Exxon property, the city created an enclave, and then they realized that it happened. This was back in the 70s, or I can't remember when exactly. So what they did is they unannexed a 1-foot strip of land to connect Southwestland Drive, which is still in the county, with that Easy Storage property, so that it wasn't an enclave. And it's unclear from the records with the annexation whether that that 1 foot strip kind of happened or didn't. And so one of the things we like to do is sort of clean that up also as part of that Southwestland, a future annexation. So that possibly is what you were referring to?
Yes, that's
okay.
exactly it.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I hope that explanation
Yep, it does.
is good.
Okay.
Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure you mentioned that after a certain amount of time that the agreements would expire. And I just make sure I'm understanding it's just the requirements under the agreement will still be a part of the city after the
Yes, yes. So
expiration.
right. So the annexation itself happens from that first resolution to annex. And then these annexation agreements are actually outside of that. You don't always have an annexation agreement within annexation. So, yes, and the idea of having a termination date in there is, as Lynn alluded to, the rule against perpetuities. Sure. Usually annexation agreements are concerned about immediate development or development within the next, say 10 to 20 years. And so after a certain amount of time, they really aren't as relevant as they would be. So rather than having these annexation agreements that remain in effect forever, that could potentially have some sort of impact on future redevelopment in say 50 years, we thought it was a good idea to start having these termination dates so that so that they just basically go away once the immediate development sort of happens or immediate redevelopment happens. That way there's no risk of hampering future redevelopment or future uses or anything like that.
Thank you for clearing that up. Yeah, it's my first annexation, I believe, so I just want to make sure I understood that. I'm excited about this project. The area has long needed a grocery store to replace the Y's, which was a Food Lion before that, which was whatever it was before that. I drive past this place quite often, and it is a shadow of its former self, and it's really exciting to have this plan before us, to be welcoming it into the city, assuming my colleagues agree with me. We desperately need it. The community desperately needs it. And I understand some of the concerns about, adding the sheets. And I do believe that the market's going to correct itself. We've actually already seen one of the gas stations in Old Town was sold recently, and not sure what's going to be happening with that over on East Diamond. So it's I believe that this can only bring good things to the city. I'm looking forward to seeing shovels in the ground, and I plan to support this annexation.
Okay, Rob.
Sure. I guess just for context, so if this weren't an annexation, then the annexation agreement could be a DRRA, correct?
Right. If it was already in the city and they were looking to redevelop, sure, that could be another potential, if there was something outside of the normal development process that the city was looking for at this particular site.
Okay.
An extra public.
So that's kind of the utility of it, is like, yeah, okay, sort of in action. So I was just there this weekend, Hong Kong. The new dim sum place there is absolutely delicious. I hope it remains for a long time. Not just saying that for my own benefit, but I'm excited about the project. I'm glad to hear that Councilmember McNulty agrees with me on it. It was compelling with the sheets there, and I asked the questions last go around because it lost a little bit of its compellingness when the new sheets came in right next to Chick-fil-A, but I appreciate you addressing those questions in response here. I understand the necessity of it in the kind of the broader scheme of things, and the broader scheme of things is positive, and so I'll be supporting.
Okay, Neil.
So I'm also looking forward to the revitalization of this shopping center. I've heard from a number of constituents about their concerns about having yet another gas station in the area, but given that the gas station, the Sheetz, is basically tied to the ability to get the Alde in there, people's opinions turn. They see the benefit of having a supermarket in that location way outweighing the issues of having another gas station in the area. So on that basis, I'm in favor of this going forward as well.
Okay, Lisa.
Thank you. I just want to state that if I remember correctly, the sheets that's been chosen, the build-out that's been potentially that will exist, is convertible if gasoline, if electric cars take over and gasoline is no longer the commodity it is today, then it can convert to another type of convenience store or.
Right. Well, remember in the applicant statement, they talk a lot about the sheets making most of its revenue from the actual convenience store piece of it, and so the gas stations, gas pumps are more of an attractor or just a convenience for people who are going to the sheets. So over time, certainly those could be converted to some other type of fuel, such as hydrogen, or again to EV charging. As part of the next step, the applicant has committed to including some amount of EV charging stations as part of the next step. So there will be some there anyway, but certainly sheets could do that in the future as well. And I know there are other examples of sheets in the United States, as close as Pennsylvania, for example, where they have the fast chargers there as another amenity to sort of hopefully attract those customers as well as the gasoline customers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so it looks like we have to do 3 resolutions of approval here, and I will read the first one. You guys can decide if you want to move it. This would be a motion to approve, a resolution to approve X 9510-2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 4-0.
And for the record, I think Lisa beat me to the second.
Okay, next one would be resolution of approval authorizing city manager to negotiate and execute an annexation agreement X 9510-2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 4-0. And next would be, I should have read the address. The first one, just want to be clear, the first one was for the address at 16531 South Frederick Avenue and the vacant lot at 8939 North Westland Drive. That's the one.
That was the second one.
That's the one we just voted on.
Yeah, that's the one we just did. This next one would be authorizing city manager to negotiate and execute an annexation agreement for the Joginder property located at 8941 North Westland Drive.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 4-0. I think that covers it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirk. Very excited about this project. Next is from the city attorney.
I want to give you a quick update on how voting is going so far. For mail-in ballot applications, as of 5 o'clock this evening, we had received 3,609 ballot applications, which exceeds the total amount we received in 2021, which we received 3,434 for that year. And we have also received 312 actually returned ballots.
312 ballots, okay.
Yep. And that's it for me
Okay,
this evening.
thank you. Anything from any other staff? Okay. Well, I'll remind everybody that we do have an executive session immediately following this meeting, and I think this is the last opportunity to say Happy Halloween to everybody before our last meeting. I guess we have a work session next. Do we have a work session? I forgot to read that too.
Yes.
Sorry, everybody. Let me just do our upcoming sessions. We had a lot this meeting, so we do have a work session next Monday, October 23rd, to receive a presentation on the first year's findings of our Gaithersburg history project and an update on the 30% design of the I-270 NIST East shared use path. We will not have sessions on Monday, October 30th, Monday, November 6th, and Monday, November 13th due to the upcoming 2023 city elections. A special session will be held on Monday, November 20th, solely to receive the certification of election results and to swear in the newly elected city council members. The special session will be conducted pursuant to a motion properly adopted by the mayor and city council on Monday, November 20th. And the mayor and city council will conduct a hybrid work session on November 27th at City Hall to receive briefings from the Environmental Affairs, Economic and Business Development, and Transportation Committees. The next regular session of the Mayor and Council will be on Monday, December 4th. So until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.